about Illuminati, since the charting up ducks. Is it Disney mind control? Is this MK Ultra Deluxe? Occult Disney, go wish upon a star. Occult Disney, should know what to chat for. Occult Disney, Pineal Gland, Pinocchio. Occult Disney, as a bomb so low. Pinocchio seeks fun on Pleasure Island, where traffickers need just fallen minds. Captain Hook, a lost boy in Neverland, saving kids from Peter Pan's designs. Nemo feels to survive the Barracuda, and that nobody means no one. Snow White never took another breath. Bird Prince, the angel of death has come. Occult Disney, we go from real to real. Occult Disney, Bohemian Grove and no more real. Occult Disney, ask about to Illuminati. Occult Disney, we teach occult to everybody. Occult Disney, go wish upon a star. Occult Disney, you know what to try far. Oh, Occult Disney, the new brand Pinocchio. Yeah, yeah, Occult Disney, it's a bomb so the blow. Occult Disney, please enjoy the show.
Other side of the ocean where I live in Japan, not looking at Mickey Mouse, but weird feral mice dripping with blood and gore in a primordial forest. This is Matt here. There's Thomas there. What's up?
I'm excited. I like this movie. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Princess Mononoke Hime, if you want to be nasty. This is my second podcast this month doing it. If you want to hear what's probably a very different take, head over to the Films and Filth feed. But yeah, I'd actually never seen it before. So I'd never seen it before. And now I've watched it twice in July. So I'm drowning in the forest pond.
How did this one escape your watch list, being as, I guess, recognized and credited as it is?
When it came out, the reviews were, it's very good and it's very boring. And the poster was very boring. The poster just shows like this bronze medallion or something. It barely looks like an anime or anything. Yeah. I think between the two of those, and also in 1990s, I guess it came out in the States in 98, 99, not 97. But when it came out in the States, anime wasn't fully ingrained into America yet. I mean, that was one of the big things about Spirited Away that we did a few weeks ago. That was the first anime to really hit. This one got like critical acclaim, but there was no like, y'all have to go see it sort of thing. One of the reasons I went to see Spirited Away very early in its theatrical run is simply because of the reviews, which I guess I read more reviews back then, were like, oh, this one's way more exciting. So I was like, good, I'll go see it.
I'm forever biased in Princess Mononoke just because, for whatever reason, I think I was just fresh into the military, or it might have been a year before I got in, and I hadn't watched any anime of any kind before that, except for maybe like Speed Racer because it was on Nick at Night or something. But I hadn't really watched any of it or been that interested in it. And I remember I saw Princess Mononoke, Ninja Scroll, and Vampire Hunter D, and I've been trying to figure out, why does my brain connect these in these weird ways when they're not even really necessarily in the same studio or the same genre. And what it is on this rewatch of Princess Mononoke is that it has real hardcore gore, and it has like over the top violence and something that you would almost expect from PG-13 bordering on R action movie or even horror movie. And I think that for that reason, it it almost seems like it could be for kids because it has like a very juvenile aspect. It's got almost like a FernGully with lots of blood and gore and battle. That's kind of the way that I see it. And honestly, I guess I could see people saying it was boring, but it's like, again, it's like FernGully, but people get their arms chopped off. So I mean,
now that I've watched it, I wouldn't call it boring. But yeah, that's the word on the street back in the day.
Well, the word on the street makes sense too, because I do remember specifically trying to get my other friends to take a look at this. And for the longest time, the DVD box cover, it was just some chick in front of a wolf. And maybe she had some red blood or paint on her face or something. And then on the back, it had the weird forest entity with, kind of looks like a big tree with a bunch of legs mixed with an elephant or something. That was it. And it didn't really have the same grappling power as, say, Ninja Scroll or Vampire Hunter D did, or Princess Mononoke. It almost just sounds like some boring princess story. It's really anything but. I don't really identify with a princess being anywhere in this movie.
Oh, there's basically it translates to Mononoke is like a beast, and then Hime's princess. So it's like beast princess. So she's like queen of the princess of the forest.
That's like a female beast master. See, if they just called it the badass female beast master, they would have gotten some more tickets. And that's kind of what it is. She is a female beast master.
I think, especially for an English audience, saying Princess Mononoke. I mean, as a geek of my age, I instantly think of Princess Leia. So, I mean, let's not even go the Disney route. I'll think of Princess Leia. There's a little more action.
Princess Peach or something.
Yeah. So Princess Mononoke is going to.
Why would you cover
bite your larynx out with her mouth?
Well, why would you cover up such an awesome word like beast with Mononoke? I mean, I understand that maybe it has some other connotations, but man, you're leaving all the money on the table by doing that. Like
it works in Japanese better.
Well, of course. So I wonder with Disney's agreement, which is the whole read, in case anyone's listening and they're like, why are we even talking about anime on Occult Disney? It's because Disney acquired or took over the distribution for a lot of these Studio Ghiblis, and this being no different from that. But I wondered if Disney had any input whatsoever in saying, hey, maybe we should swap out the word Mononoke with Beastmaster.
This one is a touch different, I should say. This was... it wasn't done. It was done theatrically. I think it went through Miramax or something. I'm actually scrolling through here, but it's not with the full Disney machine behind it. Yeah, Harvey Weinstein was trying to edit the film as he loved to do in the 90s. So this was a Miramax release, which is still Disney, but it's confusing. That's why we didn't do this one first, basically. But
he did like putting his hands all over things.
Yes, he did. I mean, I can see you get a 2 hour 13 minute animated film. I mean, even a sensible person might think maybe we should cut down this import. I'm glad I didn't, but I can see that.
It's a good point. It is definitely on the longer of any of the movies we've reviewed so far. Like in the top 3 of I think longest. I haven't been keeping a tally, but I definitely know that whenever something's 2 hours or longer, I complain right away. And I don't necessarily complain for this one.
Yeah, I think this is the longest. No, this is a great movie. So it's not the Ghibli you see so much in Japan. I mean, it does have some critical acclaim, but you're not going to see this one playing on the background TV in a home or in my case, at a school or something, right?
Right, and that's honestly what I think stands out and makes me like it so much. Not that there has to be some kind of blood and gore or anything. And in fact, I wouldn't even say that there's lots of blood and gore. It's just that it's very visceral and mature the way it goes about. It's the guy has this weird black goo that I guess we'll get into it a little bit. But the most cool part that stands out to me is that there's this black goo, and the black goo kind of represents, I think, the progression of technology or industrialization, or at least they link it in this movie to iron balls that I think get shot out of guns or cannons, but it has a very feel, again, like FernGully, where you've got nature versus man, but it's a very literal sense where man is actually shooting arrows and guns at these nature creatures, and they're trying to take them out so that they can keep expanding a little bit. And this guy basically gets possessed and has this black goo that represents, I guess, transhumanism or advancement of technology, and it turns him into like super strength in that one arm. And just by shooting arrows, it goes through and it just pops dudes' heads off. Like the arrow just makes contact and the head's gone. And that's something that I wouldn't expect from anything, again, related to Disney distribution outside of Touchstone and whatnot. And I know it's Ghibli, it's not Disney, but that's where this one stands apart from all the other Ghibli movies that I think.
Yeah, even for Ghibli, it's pretty hardcore. Now, one thing worth noting is, and I'm not even sure this is clear, but this is the only Ghibli, or at least Miyazaki movie, that's like a historical drama, I guess a historical fantasy in this case. But this is his only historically based movie. So, can you tell like when this takes place? I'm kind of pop quizzing you a bit.
Absolutely not. I mean, I assumed it was somewhat in feudal Japan area, but it's definitely feels like it's right on the precipice of the industrialization, whenever that came to Japan in some way. Because again, they have guns, so that definitely dates it to a certain moment in time. But I don't know exactly what like the century would be.
Yeah, I think we're looking at about 16th century.
Okay, 1500s, yeah.
When I first put the movie on the first time, I actually thought it was like something BC at first. This is, I guess, where I do need to explain a little bit of Japanese history that maybe not everyone is familiar with. So Japanese people were basically Koreans, or like what you think of as a Japanese person. Don't tell them that, they don't like that, but they're basically just Koreans. 1,500 years ago, they started populating the island, and there were people here. So, so they're slowly kind of pushed up the island, and the remnants of those people now live in Hokkaido, the northern island. That's like the only place you're going to find this stuff now. They're called the Ainu now. They give them a different name here, but
so
yeah, these
are the Japanese versions of like Native Americans. These are the native Japanese.
Correct. 100% correct. Yes.
Okay.
So, and this movie is a little weird because if he won't tell people where he's from, right? He's like, I can't tell to you about it because clearly his community is hidden, meaning it's probably closer to like where I live, because the idea was maybe like the people had already been pushed along up the island 400 years earlier, and this one community is just so out there and tucked in the mountains that they're still there. So. But that's interesting too. You could definitely get a community lost in some mountains around here, especially if you don't have the infrastructure we have now.
What's nuts too is that this island that you're talking about, where all the original Japanese people got pushed to, I was looking it up, and that island itself had its own native population of a certain type of people. So when all of Japan gets pushed into this little spot, they themselves push out whatever used to be there. So
that's like America shoving all the tribes into the Great Plains,
Right. It's just like a geopolitical version of musical chairs in a way.
Yeah.
One country keeps taking all the chairs.
And I had a company trip to Hokkaido a few years ago. We went to the Podunk part, the northeast part, not the cities of Hokkaido are all in the southwest of the island. So we went to the northeast where they do have a bunch of Ainu stuff, and we stayed in this onsen town, which all the design is supposed to be Ainu. So it looks a little bit more like the style of this movie. They have a lot of owls. That's interesting. Owls are very prominent in their iconography. But yeah, thank you, company. But they put us in this really nice hotel, like expensive hotel, which had all the Ainu accoutrements, but was clearly like expensive and not authentic, It's like, visiting like Disney's, Cherokee Ranch or something, not, an actual tribal thing.
Well, I never heard about the Ainu before. So the Ainu is kind of what defines the aesthetic of Princess Mononoke.
Well, the opening part and our lead character. So that would be Ainu stuff, or native stuff. Jomon is the period that we're talking about before the current Japanese showed up. So
What would say like Ninja Scroll be? Is there a certain region or peoples or time period that you would say, oh yeah, and Ninja Scroll is this?
I'm gonna have to look it up because I have not experienced the Ninja Scroll or Vampire Hunter D. Sorry.
Oh, I mean that's fine because honestly, I'm the ultimate normie when it comes to anime. So I think I've only seen like the most basic of anything, and none of like the real deep stuff yet. Although it's someone recommended Berserk to me, and I did really like Death Note, the animation. I even didn't hate the live action, although you're not supposed to say that out loud. But I didn't hate it. It wasn't the greatest thing.
Now, this is giving it to me as a Jidai Geki, which is what Princess Mononoke is too, which is basically just a historical film of any time before industrialization, all the feudal Japan stuff, and well, not so much the period after that when the samurai were just kind of walking around and carrying swords still. Well, no, sorry, it is Edo period Japan. So the Ninja Scroll looks like it would be probably like 17th, 18th century. So a little bit after Mononoke.
Okay, this just like there was the Disney timeline of all the Monsters Inc. In the future and whatnot. It would be interesting to kind of, I'm sure someone out there has already done, but all of like the popular anime on a timeline, so you know exactly if you want to watch it all in chronological order, how you would do that.
You would take 6,000 years. There's so many animes. You know, think about all the ones that don't get imported.
Well, those don't count. If it doesn't make it to America, then it doesn't really count, in my opinion.
Okay. Even the ones that make it to America, I mean, now, you know, back in the 90s, you could do that. Yeah. You'd have trouble doing that now. And I'm not a big anime head despite living in Japan. I mean, you know, I've seen a few and probably a few more than the regular Joe. And it's, you know, more likely to be playing on a TV in the background when you do live in Japan. So, like, I think maybe I mentioned it before, Kamen Rider, that's not anime, that's live action with all the little insecty looking robot monsters and stuff. But for some reason, that show, they're always crucifying people. They'll kidnap them and crucify them. And then the Kamen Rider have to come save them. So it's just weird. I don't think they're nailing them things, but they're tying them up to, you know, like even like kids that they've kidnapped and stuff. Everyone gets crucified in this kid show.
I mean, it's that one sounds pretty occult. We could definitely do an occult breakdown of that.
Well, actually, they just put out a Shin Kamen Rider. You know, there was Shin Godzilla, Shin Ultraman, and then they just did Shin Kamen Rider, which I heard it's not bad. So,
okay, I'm still completely ignorant of almost all of these. Like I said, I'd still reference Ninja Scroll and Princess Mononoke when someone says anime. Like those are my go-to references.
Yeah, I can't tell you anything about Kamen Rider. That's one that definitely like was just playing on the TV in the background at work. You know, like kids are watching it, and me and my coworkers and I just started. And I was like, keep crucifying people in the show. That's weird.
It's a different cultural acceptance. Just like, well, how much would Princess Mononoke be considered for kids in Japan?
I don't think this is the Ghibli you show to kids. When you bring it up, you know, some people, oh, that's a scary one, you know, like there is a weird thing where people sometimes, this is just from me talking to people and not their first language, but where they will equate a bad movie with scary. It's bad. Why? It's scary. I'm like, well, that doesn't make it bad. Mononoke, I sometimes get those comments about. Yeah. But
really,
Totoro comes up way more
as scary of any kind. And I know that you're sort of explaining that it's it's the gore, I guess, but it's also kind of like the Super Nintendo style of gore where there's a lot of sweat instead of blood. You know what I mean? Like when the guy has his arms ripped off, you don't see a trail of blood, although there are a few different scenes when it does get a little bit gory, but it's really nothing. I mean, maybe I'm just so desensitized from 80s and 90s schlock horror movies where that's the name of the game.
Yeah, and keep in mind, I'm not by gore. I don't necessarily mean like blood. There's some of that, but I just mean the weird goopy stuff that probably smells horrible. You know?
Oh, like, the little black goo monster, and there's definitely. I guess this is one of my favorite aspects of the little detail, but this weird black goo, it envelops this huge wild boar, and then you can almost see that once it envelops the boar, it kind of assumes its form plus a couple legs, give or take. Like it turns into like a boar alien-ish thing made of all these black goo worms, but then everywhere it moves, it leaves this little trail of blood and slime that I assume it's kind of as it's consuming this huge boar that it just enveloped. that's kind of powering it, but it leaves behind like its little remnants as it moves around. So it is, I guess, very gory in that kind of sense, but it's not over the top.
It's goopy. I mean, let's think about it. Let's say you're an anime boy and you're like, man, that Mononoke is a cutie. You're like, man, but think of what she smells like. I mean, they comment on it, right? She's covered herself in boar's blood.
Yeah, what would a beast
right.
smell like?
So she can smell wild. Always interested in smell-o-vision, of course.
I mean, I'm sure that those samurais that are running around in their full gear out in the mountains all day, they probably don't smell tip-top.
Oh yeah, I can promise you that. I mean, I got the kids coming yesterday with one of them had very raw socks. Comes in every week with this funky socks. Smells up the room. I don't like that.
Bring great dishonor.
That's right. Yeah. I want to say the forests are based on. I want to double check by looking at the production notes here. But one interesting thing, I just mean like where this actually turned out. Okay. Yes, Yakushima Island. Most of Japan's nature, the forests don't look like this anymore. That's kind of part of the point. They did overforest everything at some point and replanted everything with cedar, and now everyone has a cedar allergy. So I just saw something in the news recently where they're going to start trying to put some different trees up on the mountains because everyone is spending half the year, spitting fledgem out. As you sometimes see me hitting the mute and doing so. So yeah, people take days off work because of allergies and stuff, which I guess happens everywhere. But taking a day on work in Japan, that doesn't happen much. You have to be screwed up for that to happen usually.
Yeah, something as simple as cedar.
Just when you have that much cedar, and that's something that a whole lot of people have an allergy to. So the forest here, there's Yakushima Island, a relatively untouched island, which is now like a World Heritage Site or something. So if you want to see Japan's primordial forest, you would go there.
I mean, just to not make any assumptions here, have you ever seen ginormous white wolves or the little clicky forest creatures or huge spirit animals that look like black goo mountain deer?
Well, I've seen wild clouds coming over the mountains with the moon looking like an eye in the middle of it, and I've seen shrines at night. I'm just talking about how that gets translated into those things, right? Wolves, no. What do we have? We have some bears around. If you go hiking, you want to take bear.
Are there white wolves of any kind in Japan?
Not that I know of.
White wolves?
Geez, I don't know. Now I'm gonna have to type in wolves in Japan and check.
And I had to look up too those little clicky creatures. They're called kodama, I believe. I'm probably mispronouncing that horribly, but
no,
kodama.
I think you have it about right because kodomo is children. These are kodama. So
these little kodama are these little clicky white forest things that they almost portray as being the lifeblood of the forest god. Or there's this big deer elephant looking creature, and then when it gets its head exploded off, all of these little white clicky guys come out of it. But the little white clicky guys also live in a big tree, and that's like their mother, and they kind of guide people around the forest, I guess. They also are scary to one guy. One guy is basically put off by the little clicky dudes. It's probably my favorite part of Mononoke, and I guess that I had assumed up until very recently that these were just in all the Studio Ghibli movies, or that these little clicky things were just present in all anime. And I think now I've really only seen them in Mononoke out of the few anime movies I've seen.
For your answer, the Japanese wolf is most likely extinct, which I guess makes it a powerful, creature to use for this movie then, because
right, it fits into the FernGully aspect, right? bad humans for taking over all of the environment and kicking the wolves out.
But like how no one here is like 100% villainous, right? Lady Eboshi, she's the villain, but she also does many, she's built this community. She's brought all these women out of, being prostitutes, all that sort of stuff, right? And she's doing it with an industry, which that's why she's villainous, because when that comes up against these forests, but it's not like she's just a Fern. I haven't actually watched FernGully, to be honest, but she's not. She wouldn't have a mustache anyway. But she's not a mustache twirling villain, right? She could in a different movie. She actually is the hero. In a biopic, she's the she built a community, all that sort of stuff.
Did you just say you've never seen FernGully?
I've never seen FernGully. Yeah,
You've seen Avatar.
I've seen Avatar. I know people call it Dances with FernGully and stuff, but yeah.
You've seen Avatar and you've seen Mononoke, so I guess you've seen some aspect of FernGully, but yeah,
that's what I assume.
I guess you owe it to yourself just for the references and the context alone.
Yeah, that's when it gets referenced so much, though. It's almost like I forgot I haven't watched it until it really comes up.
Because I look back on, FernGully was classic programming, and I remember that was very acceptable to play in public school. And in fact, I probably saw it 3 or 4 times through the course of elementary and middle school, because the message is essentially humans bad, taking over the forest, down with corporations, which isn't necessarily incorrect in any way, but it's also kind of like one of those climate change movies, and it sort of turned into like a PBS style movie where it's so correct and so noble that it's worth putting on instead of learning for that day, or like your homework could just be watching FernGully. So it kind of turned into this weird state-sponsored movie in the back of my mind, like that was an unintentional thing, but it just linked that way because it was like, damn, every time I see FernGully, I seem to be, in this state-sponsored environment of public education. Why is that?
This is that slight, I guess, Gen X millennial split we have, where it's 1992, which means I was 13 and would have just kind of missed being on the FernGully.
I distinctly remember seeing FernGully at least in 4th grade, like a few different times.
I do remember being taken to Fern Bank, which is a kind of environmental museum educational thing in Atlanta, and being shown these horrible tropical rainforest rap videos. Rap is in quotations, by the way, because it was the late 80s and it was white people. It was white people making this in the late 80s,
It was a special time when, for some reason, all of corporate America decided that they needed someone rapping in all of their videos. And it was, so much of it has been lost to time, but sometimes it's fun going back. I think there's one in particular. There's like a GameStop or electronics boutique onboarding video that was for people that just got hired, never meant for the public. And it was all done in rap. And it's about how to like upsell people on different accessories. But it's just a bunch of horrible white people rapping really awkwardly.
My favorite, and this actually is a black guy in the video. Wendy's did this a lot in the 80s. Have you seen Wendy's drinks? Yeah. You know about the hot drinks, and okay, good. Yeah. Cold drinks, not as good. Grill Skills is pretty good, but it's in the middle of a 10-minute video, so you have to scrub a bit for that one.
And there was a point on that tangent too. It was just that I wonder how well Princess Mononoke could have done for also instilling that same concept that I guess FernGully was meant to instill. Be like, hey kids, your parents didn't do such a great job being custodians of this planet. That's the implication, at least. So here, we need to teach you this new way, and here's how bad it is. So FernGully, Avatar, some other ones were that one for me, but Princess Mononoke would have been even better, I think.
I need to do a title check here, but I think I know what did it for me, or at least the one that came my way.
Making you feel bad about the environment?
Yes. The Emerald Forest, a 1985 film. Have you ever heard of this?
No, see that, again, like our slight age difference, I guess for whatever reason, that one never came up when I was
younger. The poster features...
Emerald Forest?
I guess that's Powers Booth there. But the poster has a Beastmaster looking boy or girl with an arrow. Like, it's not that far off from the Mononoke. Like, this could be the Mononoke box if you took this this white, middle-aged white dude off the front. His father. Okay, it's a boy in this case. But yeah. John Borman, that's a real director. Okay. It's 6.9 on IMDb. I'm just curious because I haven't seen this for a very long time. But I do remember, like, just, oh my God, they tear down the forest and we're all going to die. I did get that message in elementary school from this movie, not FernGully.
You know what? This looks like a British movie. So I'm happy to say that I was sort of isolated from British media growing up.
Is
and
it
I'm
British?
I'm thankful to my parents and to my public education system that kind of did that for me.
Yeah. Okay. Chosen after English. Well, it's mostly in the forest without speaking, so I guess you don't really notice where it's from. Especially when you're like 6 or 7 years old. No, it's just interesting because it never clocked with me that was any, a British. I probably thought it was a Brazilian movie when I watched it because it took place in Brazil.
And I think there's a lot of correlations too between this theme of Mononoke with, say, Pocahontas. I think could fall into that. Even Jungle Book, in a lot of ways, kind of fall into that same theme. Tarzan, absolutely. Even the end of Tarzan sort of implies that they're starting to tear down the rainforest a little bit, right? And then they show kind of like the mechanical animals in a way taking it all down. So I think that all share similar themes. I really do think Mononoke should fit right into there, but I could see teacher getting complaints because, why is my kid talking about people having their arms and their heads blown off?
No, I do remember because Glory, the movie Glory about the Civil War, came out in 1989. They show that to kids, especially during Black History Month, because it was the Black Regiment. But yeah, the first time they showed it in school, I remember I was so pissed off. It turned out there was an educational cut because I was like, we're going to get to watch a guy's head explode from a cannonball. And they, that was cut. So like at school, we're going to get to see it at school.
I was thinking that story-wise, this movie, maybe I'm just not looking into it deep enough, but the main characters, aside, and forgive me for not knowing all of their names, but the guy that actually gets possessed or he touches the demon and he gets it in his arm, which makes him have this like super strength, but it also Hashitaka, and it also gives him this like hatred that starts to fester in him. And to me, that's also a really interesting premise that the movie puts in, is that you can be possessed by literal demons, not from anything that you do or say or believe, but just by coming in actual physical contact. Just osmosis in itself is the way that you avoid getting demonically possessed. So there's really no emphasis on being able to fix it or living a good life or karma or anything like that. It's just don't touch the black goo and you won't be possessed by a demon. And if you do touch the black goo, you're screwed and there's no way around it and you'll just eventually die from it. It's an interesting, I guess, there's no real Aesop fable to be told there. Just don't touch the black goo.
Yeah, and the stuff going on in his home village, with the oracle or whatever, and him, that's none of that is like things that like people, that's the old ways, again, that's the native ways in Japan. So that is very foreign even for the Japanese viewer. Probably the black goo too. I doubt most of us have been touched by the black goo, but
I guess in general it is a good lesson to learn though. If you see black goo, probably don't touch it. I can't think of a lot of instances when you would want to touch it.
Beverly Hillbillies?
You still don't want to touch it, though.
Yeah, okay, still don't want to touch it. That's true. But they love the black goo, didn't they? Black gold.
I mean, that could be a very, very real analogy for this movie, that to them it's this big horror because they're all obsessed with, preserving nature. But for the industrious city, that black goo kind of represents ushering in of this new boom that they're expecting.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of like a good metaphoric way to bring in, a little more modern stuff like oil and stuff, right? Because you can't, 16th century Japan, iron, sure, but oil, no. But we feel, as a modern viewer, we subconsciously, I guess, get that vibe a little bit from seeing so much black goo. This is modern machine crap flowing through the forest.
And then I guess the next wave of the Industrial Revolution, if you look at, say, Prometheus, right, the alien sort of prequel movie, that black goo, one of my favorite examples of it, and if you watch the original, I don't know if it was the director's cut, but one of the original cuts in the very intro completely changes the entire breakdown of the movie. But in this cut version of the intro, the architects, these or the engineers that are kind of like these godlike beings, they identify that there's this black goo in the planet, and the black goo is this true organic material, and they kind of call it like this god substance or given to them by the gods, and that it could create all sorts of life. So they actually take the black goo and they just drop it into the ocean, and then it forms all these different DNA strands, and then that evolves in the fish. Like, it basically implying that this black goo is the source of all life, and that over time they wanted to keep doing experiments with it and ran out of it, and then eventually had to create their own black goo, a synthetic black goo. And that synthetic black goo kind of goes out of control. It's definitely got this Gnostic, like Yaldabaoth feel to it, where, okay, they've created this imperfect thing that is supposed to be based on the perfect thing. Long story short, though, is that the new version of black goo no longer representing oil and then the Industrial Revolution, but now black goo is like nanotechnology. So you could still watch Princess Mononoke under that same exact lens, where now the big black goo monster that's coming and eating the boar and coming after the city, that really does seem like it could be a swarm of nanoparticles, just the same as it could be anything else.
Right. You know, like, we're bringing in the old ones with AI, some people say, right? The old ones are coming back.
Right. And if you just touch it, then you get infected too, which also kind of seems like if you interact with AI in some way, not only did you literally feed it, potentially, right? You just gave it some extra feedback that it can use to adjust itself for future interactions with other people or people like you. But also it kind of rubs off on you in a little bit, to where I think at least right now, it stands out because there's always a tiny little tinge of uncanny valley. But even if there isn't, once that part goes away and it's to such high fidelity that there's no more uncanny valley, if we even get there, then really I would imagine that AI could be used, and all these nanotechnology stuff could be used to make huge, impressive, traumatic changes. Like, it won't all just be very subtle stuff. It won't just be turning your wall to look like a passive little forest or something to keep you pacified, right? Like, a lot of these versions, I mean, I might be going all the way out on this one, but if you remember Minority Report, and you would walk down the middle of the street and every billboard was targeted at you in particular and saying your name and all of this.
We're kind of getting that. I mean, like, slowly, even if you don't go off to interact with it, I mean, you still are, right? It's paying. You're still feeding it just like, by being online.
Oh yeah, on your phone or on your browser, or and I guess the next iteration of that really will just be out in physical reality, whether it's through some kind of AR technology or something even a little bit less intrusive than that, right? So, because I think that's the holy grail, would be that if you just went out in public and the billboards that you saw on the street, you don't have to wear special glasses or anything. Somehow it would know who you are and show you that version of it.
I had a real creepy one yesterday, actually. Yesterday morning, I was listening to one of my podcasts. So I'm talking, and I used the word ubiquitous, which I just mispronounced because now I'm feeling self-conscious about it. Because when I said it, I was like, do I actually, one, how did I get that word out without screwing it up like I just did now? And two, do I actually know ambiguous? I've broken my brain. Ambiguous, not ambiguous.
You're saying like, ambiguous or ubiquitous?
Ubiquitous. There we go. See, that's my point. I said it in a podcast. I'm like, do I even quite know what that means? And how did I just spit it out, like just in the middle of a sentence, right? And I get an email later. I don't say this to anybody, but I get an email later saying, it's like Quora questions, and it's like, what does the word I can't say it again already. And it was like, what is? Yeah. Yes, thank you. It's so weird, right? And I broke my brain through that process. Now I literally can't say it anymore. And I said it in a podcast, speaking quickly, like last week. But then I get the email like
they're preying on your shortcomings already.
Yeah, but I didn't say that out loud or anything. So that's why I got really tripped out getting that email. I was like, I just had that thought when I heard myself say it on a podcast I was listening to this morning.
If you want to get yourself over whatever the mental block, you got like a stutter developed around it now. But
yeah, really.
the main reason, the thing that comes to mind every time the word ubiquitous or ubiquity comes up is because of Roy Ayers album, which is absolutely phenomenal.
That is a great album.
Top 10 albums of all time. Yeah, Roy Ayers' Ubiquity. So that's usually what I think of.
I'll throw in the extra 3 cents of music dork that there's an album called that, and then he used it for the name of the band for a few albums. But all those are good too, so I guess you won't go wrong.
Really, Roy Ayers he named his band Ubiquity?
Yeah, because the Magic Voyage album is credited to Roy Ayers' Ubiquity. So it's not, then the name of the album is Magic Voyage. So I just want to match that. Yes, Roy Ayers is awesome. And I'm not just blowing smoke.
See, we got there. Somehow we got from Mononoke all the way to Roy Ayers. We'll get back again.
Grover Washington Jr. albums in the 70s. Throw those out too. Okay. Smooth jazz conversation may be complete for now. Let's see. Now, I of course, I don't want to sit here and say all the things I just said in a different podcast for this, but we did have a female member talking on the podcast, and she was talking. One thing she liked about this movie is how the women are dirty. And not sexually dirty, just how they're grimy and, like sweating and shooting guns. And she's like, yeah, that's real women.
For 4 days on end, it sounds like. She makes this one note in the movie. What English dub translation, by the way. Did you watch English dub or did you watch Japanese
I can't live with myself watching this one. So like I said, I did watch how dubbed because 5 minutes in, I was like,
you're so hard to predict. How do I know? No, this one I had to watch. If it's 2 hours, then I'm gonna have to, look away every once in a while, like wet my eyes.
I mean, I didn't have to look at the subtitles much this time. One, because I know a little bit of Japanese, and two, I just watched it, so I could pay attention to the visuals more. I mean, that's worth the second view. Did you get the English voice cast? That's kind of fun.
I actually did. I didn't look it up. It was great, man. I had absolutely no complaints with any. No.
This is the point where they start getting a good cast of people to at least do the dub. Billy Crudup was Ashitaka, Claire Danes was San, Minnie Driver, Lady Eboshi. That makes sense, especially in the late 90s.
Okay.
Jigo is Billy Bob Thornton, Toki, Jada Pinkett Smith, and then John DiMaggio's in there. So Gillian Anderson. Okay, she had a small part in there. And,
really, this is actually makes it much more impressive. I think
Keith David had a voice.
Selling points, to be honest. These are huge selling points for the 90s. No,
yeah. Like I'm saying, it has a very good dub. It's just I can't sit there and watch something that's a Japanese historical movie living in Japan and it's not in Japanese. It's just like this one doesn't have kids, because usually my argument is you really need to hear how kids are talking in Japanese, and there are no kids in this movie, so. So watch it dubbed, especially if that sounds good. But yeah, just I would feel weird watching this one dubbed.
The star-studded overdubbed cast almost seems like it elevates the movie for someone that knows the English language.
Well, it has a very good Japanese voice cast too. You just you don't necessarily know these people because you're an American. If you're Japanese, you would be very impressed by the Japanese voice cast as well.
I find that hard to believe compared to Claire Danes and Billy Bob Thornton. But
I mean, I should say, So Ghibli movies. Let's see, Porco Rosso. If you watch a dub of that, is Michael Keaton. So that doesn't have anything particularly Japanese. So watch Porco Rosso dubbed, sure. Laputa, probably. That's Castle in the Sky. You watch that dubbed. I mean, that's a fantasy. Totoro. Don't watch that dubbed. Totoro is the one that even for you, watch that one in Japanese. Because that's all kids speaking, and I think it actually becomes a bad movie when you change it into English.
Oh, that sounds like a challenge. Okay.
We'll maybe if we do Totoro, maybe you do it, and I'll be like, "Oh my god, I love
that one."
Movie.
Was not distributed by Disney, right? So that one we'd be bending the rules a little bit, or what?
I'm having a look at it. I think Disney did the dub though.
So if we do cover it, we have to watch the dubbed version. Otherwise, there's no
you might be. Maybe you're right. Let's see how. First, who is in the Totoro dub? Chevy Chase.
Come on, man. Are you going to try and talk me out of
Wait,
this?
Sorry. I read it wrong. This is the 4-year-old daughter. That is Cheryl Chase. Actually. Oh, wait. Okay. Here, there was an original English voice actor dub in 1989. This is not Disney. Disney distributed this on video in 2005 and then added a new dub, I guess. and this one does have names. This one doesn't blow you out of the water, but it's got a few names. The Fanning sisters play the sisters, Dakota and Ellie Fanning.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. Tim Daly is the father. Whatever. I mean, I know who he is, but don't care. Frank Welker, but he does that. I mean, he's in everything. So, so this one does not have the star power unless you're just really into the Fanning sisters. But yeah. I will say but Mononoke and How were definitely ones where it's like, okay, there is something like How I actually do. Well, like I said, I'll go to, watch that one in the dub. It's got
but I watched How non-dubbed and I didn't know that had Billy Crystal in it. But I had seen it in the past. So I like when you said it, the second you said it, I could hear the little fire with Billy Crystal's voice in the back of my head.
So yeah, I guess it's How fantastical. Like I think she Tales. There's the one, I think it's not a Miyazaki, it might be his son or whatever. But yeah, there's one where I think it's a girl gets shrunk at like an English garden. It's like, well, yeah, watch that one in English. That makes sense, right? I can't remember what the name is off the top of my brain, but yeah, I guess it kind of depends on what the setting of the movie is. If the setting's very Japanese, to me, it seems like weird not to watch in Japanese. But if it's fantasy, do what you want,
And you were talking about the dirty women that some of them were like ex-prostitutes and now they were getting into manual labor.
But dirty isn't manual labor. It was the main point. Yeah. Even though they were prostitutes. So you could call them.
Yeah. But a little bit both.
And they all had their cleavage hanging out. It was weird how much cleavage was hanging around, but whatever.
It wasn't that kind of movie. Oh, there was another nod that felt important because they gave a whole beat to it in the story, which would have been on the cutting room floor if it wasn't important. And I don't know how exactly to decode it as an American watching this Japanese film, but that when the protagonist tries to pay with gold, she doesn't even know, or the women don't know what gold is because I guess they've never seen it before. They've only ever seen currency, which makes it so that also they are living in this industrialized society. So I do think it was this nod to that they've been so far removed from the natural world that they can't even recognize this thing that would be, that would have taken them out of poverty. Like they could actually just retire from whatever they were doing with enough of these little nuggets of gold. And she refuses it and almost makes fun of him because it's like, well, look at this idiot. He's trying to pay me with some rock. And then this guy steps in and he's like, that's not a rock, you idiot. That's gold. That's enough they could buy 3 months worth of this rice or whatever. And then all of a sudden she wants it. But it stood out to me that was really trying to imply how far removed they were and how dependent on the state that they kind of had become.
Well, yeah, it's like when you hear, like Plains Indians gave away their land for infected blankets. It's like, one, they didn't know the blankets were infected. And two, they thought they were just being given them because they didn't understand that anyone would own land.
Right. Yeah. Well, that was the whole thing. They didn't understand the land part because, how do you enforce that? Well, guess what? We found
wait
ways.
And find out.
Yeah, we found ways over the last millennia on how to enforce these little imaginary lines that don't really exist.
Yeah, draw the line to Dances of Wolves, and then that line draws to FernGully, and then back here makes a perfect circle.
Well, see, and you know what? I guess that's another really good point. That movies like FernGully and movies maybe less so Avatar, but FernGully and Princess Mononoke, they take those abstract lines of where industry and nature are kind of being divided, and they draw very visual and visceral. Like it's this exact line. It's right where this bulldozer is just plowing over animals' houses, and they show you the exact line, and they show it like this impending doom. And in Mononoke, they do the same thing where they're literally shooting animal spirits, and they're like, yeah, we have to take out nature itself because they're trying to expand. And also
Avatar does that directly. Great tree.
The reason I said Avatar, because Avatar kind of exists in this weird alternate dimension that they kind of like VR their way into. And then, but yeah, you're absolutely right. That great tree like slowly starts dying over time. So they show a very visual, like a health meter, like a doom health meter where the guy's head starts getting bloody when he's damaged. They actually show this abstract concept way more on the nose. And I think that's another reason why it's used to show kids very often, because it's really hard to describe those abstract kind of theories. So you're just like, hey, it's right where that line where the fire's at, and it's going to kill the bird.
Yeah, but honestly, I feel like, and having not seen FernGully, I'm like, Avatar has that line even stronger. But that's the whole point. These movies do have a similar, anti-industrial message. Did you watch the second Avatar?
Not yet in its entirety. No. And honestly, when the first Avatar came out, I went and saw that this was paid at Disney. Our manager was like, I'm going to pay for everyone to leave the office today, and we're all going to go and watch Avatar in 3D in the IMAX. And it's, it's basically a free day off, and they're going to pay to do the whole thing. So I went there, and I just remember I fell asleep so many times because you got the glasses on, and I don't do well in movies anyway, and it's really long, but I kept falling asleep. And at the end of it, and I mean, I was awake long enough to see, the general plot of the very first Avatar movie. And when it was over, my manager and everybody else that we had gone out with were all like, this is it. This is the next wave of animation. There's no going back from here. This changes everything. And I was just thinking in my head, like, 4 out of 10, 4.5 out of 10.
Not even a gentleman's 6. Okay.
Yeah, dude, not even a gentleman's 6. Like, it really felt like I was being not just pandered to, but the 3D wasn't really up to snuff. I really don't think it aged well at all. Like, even if you watched it a year afterwards, not in 3D, it wasn't as good because I think they had locked down the aesthetic from how long it freaking took to the bird. Anyway, I won't turn this into like an anti-Avatar rant, but I don't know. I've never really been a full-blown fan of Avatar for the cinematic reasons. And if you want to do a decode on it and talk about how this is like predictive programming of people actually sending their consciousness into these digital avatar homunculi and waging war, that one, I'm all in on that part, right? But the rest of it, maybe not as much.
No, I like those movies fine. I was just going to say the second one. I guess I saw it in 3D. One, I have no urge to watch the second one ever again. It was very good. But one of the reasons was there's like 30 minutes in the middle where they're basically just swimming around in a 3D digital waterscape, which you're going to fall asleep during that, right? For me, I was like, oh, this is like a theme park ride in a movie theater. This is fun. That's what I remember from that movie. Oh, and a whale rips off a dude's arm. I remember, or pops off a dude's arm. I remember that. That's pretty cool. But yeah, like that's the weird thing with The Way of Water. I actually have I thought that was a very good movie, and I don't have the urge to watch it again. Maybe because it's long. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think that if I had to put them in order again, Mononoke would be at the top of that list. FernGully would be somewhere in the middle of the list. Avatar would not even make the list.
I'll have to watch FernGully to tell you where my list works out on that. But
and the reason that I have so much affinity to FernGully again was because that meant free day at school, no homework, or you could just doodle. But also, they also had a really kick-ass, I want to say Burger King or McDonald's campaign, which was, I don't know, I still look back with fondness on some of that MK Ultra programming when it was full circle, when you got the movie and you got the Happy Meal toys and you got the day off of school. Like that was the holy trifecta that would make me like it. I don't care how bad it was. Like, I've got affinity to your branding if you got me a day off of school.
My ultimate TV at school experience actually comes from the 9th grade, not from elementary school. I don't know if I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but from like the 4th grade to the 10th grade, they made us take German for some reason in my county in Georgia. So I have German class, and the teacher was, mildly lazy. So about once every month or two, he'd start playing Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. But then the next day we wouldn't watch any more of it. So we just saw the rise of the Third Reich in this German class like 3 separate times. Just the rise. The guy wasn't even German. He wasn't a native German speaker. He talked like Mr. Garrison. So when South Park came out and Mr. Garrison was talking, what's going on here? He looked like a different kind of pervert. He did not look like Mr. Garrison, but he did sound exactly like Mr. Garrison. So
I mean, since we're on that tangent though, but I had a Spanish class in high school, and it was genius in that every Friday she would just put on Spanish novellas, and that would actually be like she would have a little worksheet and it was like, what was the dilemma in this episode, and who offended who and all these things. So you actually had to pay enough attention, but it gave me what I think was the closest to real world experience with the Spanish language compared to every other activity that we ever had to do. And I think I took it for 3 years.
No, I mean, I know all about, trying to teach a language and having not really being able to infuse it with like reality, It's like, because in Japan, English is like a school subject, right? So that's never fun. Did you, you said you were coming in without too many notes, but did you have anything you wanted to hit? You said you had a few loose ideas. Maybe we already hit them, but.
Yeah, I mean, the main ones were really just that the black goo and industrialization, and then also the black goo and like the nanotechnology, if you really had to stretch it to like a whole other millennia, I guess. And then also the that weird concept of osmosis, demonic possession, where it doesn't matter. Like, there's really no reference. Like you said, everyone's ambiguously good or bad. There's really no villain. There's really no good guy in any of this. The rule is just stay away from the black goo. Otherwise, that'll turn you into a demon. And then it's not even that you're doing bad things as a demon, but now it'll just really suck for you and everyone around you.
Destructive as a demon, yes.
And then there was this like monologue / standoff where these, and maybe you can explain some of this to me, but Princess Mononoke ends up talking to these like ape creatures, but they don't quite look like real apes. They look like these weird black goo or ethereal apes.
The first time they look weirder. The second time they look a little bit more natural.
They don't look like they're physically there. They still look somewhat translucent.
They still look a little weird the second time, because the first time they look totally bizarre, and then later they look mildly weird.
Right. Well, they almost look like they're in these weird sort of fluid sacs where there's a margin of transparent line around them, and they don't quite have definition. You see eyes and you see shading, but anyways, they're talking to Mononoke and they're saying they want to eat the protagonist. Like, they just want to consume him. And I think it's because he has that goo in him, and they think that if they eat a human, then they gain the power of a human, and then they can use that power from eating a human to then fight back. And she kind of tells them, no, you're basically feeding into the hate, and by feeding into the hate, that makes this weird demon thing spread even more. But what the hell? Yeah, I guess that's the question, is what the hell's going on with these weird celestial gorilla things? It doesn't ever feel like it gets explained in much detail in this movie.
Maybe they're like city pigeons or something. They're the species that have fallen somewhere between actual nature and man's civilization, right? Because city pigeons probably couldn't live outside of the city anymore. And these apes, like, are they eating black goo? I mean, maybe that's why they look so weird. They're finding goo from lots of sources, which is what.
Well, apparently they're just like, we're going to eat things and gain their power. So yeah, I assume that they've probably eaten some of the black goo at some point.
Because when I looked up the wolf earlier, by the way, I did not get white wolves. The previous Japanese wolf did not seem to be white. And then I was thinking, well, what do we have like those? Well, we got the snow monkeys in Nagano, but they certainly don't look like these guys. You know what the snow monkeys look like, hanging out in the onsen water. Yeah. Baraka, I think that has some shots of that.
Great movie.
Right. But yeah, that's what we have. And they don't look like these apes. And then the wolves don't really look like the wolves that used to hang out around here. We don't see any bears, do we? See, that's a weird thing. We still have plenty of bears, and we don't see them at all.
I guess my only other real note / question, or thing that we can just discuss here, is that I love the opening line of when the boar, they basically kill the boar, and they're talking about, we're going to honor you. We're going to build a temple to, your spirit, and we're going to make sure that you pass over quietly and peacefully. Please don't haunt us, essentially. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. And as they're saying this to this carcass of the boar that just had been overcome by this weird black goo stuff, as it's slithering away and taking the bits of flesh with it, it says to them, "Disgusting creatures, you will all feel my hate and suffer as I have suffered." So there's something really powerful about, it's not just that nature is withering away and we're destroying habitats and environments and stuff, but that the very process of industrialization is making nature hate us. And that, I don't know, I've never considered that in a Disney movie. In a Disney movie, nature is 100% of the time this very altruistic sort of helping hand in every single way, right? It's Mother Gaia. But in Princess Mononoke, there's really no Mother Gaia. This is sort of like Hellstone or Hellfire and Brimstone version of Jesus with like the swords. And he's like, hey, you know, it reminds me of like the Pentecost billboards where it's like, you know, our Jesus ain't no pussy. And he's got like blood and chains and, you know, he's going to war. It kind of feels like that's this weird Japanese version of Gaia. Like she doesn't take anything from anybody.
Well, this gets back to what we were talking about with Sento Chihiro. If you remember, they say that the boar spirit had come from somewhere to the west. That was the god of that particular area, and that god was pissed, right? So where these this native village was, you know, they were basically still living with nature. So the god of that mountain was perfectly happy. And that's why I watched this movie. I thought it was so funny. You're like, well, if you move a few rocks and the stream changes, does that change the god? Yes. That's like kind of what this movie is about, right? When you change it, the god changes. You might get a new one. You might lose the old one. You know, you might have to give it back its head. That one doesn't come up so much, but
yeah, I mean, just go with monotheism. It's so convenient for everybody involved.
Yeah, but you don't get a badass movie like this that way, do you?
No, and in fact, most music and movies that follow monotheism tend to not be as cool as the polytheistic
Christian rock's not
versions.
cool? You're not into Striper?
I mean, there's iterations of it, right?
No, I even like don't judge me on this. I kind of like YouTube. I always hate it when they're like, oh, we're a Christian band, and they're one. If I was a Christian, I'd be like, no, you're not. And as not being Christian, I'd be like, oh, well, I wish you weren't. You know, maybe they should shut up about it. I don't know. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Where were we? Yeah, but this definitely gets into everything has its own god, and a few of these gods in this movie are pissed.
And that's another line too of where I think it's in the opening monologue, but it says that these were the days of when humans lived alongside gods and demons, implying that I guess even demons not only did humans separate themselves from nature, but in the process they separated themselves from real gods and real demons, or at least now they live in these weird, you know, sheltered lives where they don't understand how close the connection is.
I mean, the point here is even if you are living with nature, there's gods and there's demons, right? So, and it's all grayscale again. You know, the gods and demons. I mean, the really nasty, ominous, "I'm going to kill you" god. I mean, that god did have its environment destroyed, right? So, of course, it's pissed. It's not unjustified. Now, it's getting pissed at a different group of people, but I guess you just get pissed at all humans at that point. So that can happen too.
And I'm probably unintentional, but the fact that the black goo / demon entity took over a boar right away, it reminds me of the biblical version of We Are Legion, which I believe were a bunch of pigs or boars that they get possessed.
But I didn't, by the way, I did not write FernGully or Avatar anywhere in my notes, but I did write that this movie's kind of like action Lorax. So, you know, the Lorax is more badass, like your Jesus billboard.
I guess Lorax makes the list too. Yeah. This really is, it's FernGully with teeth. I really can't stress that it's that vibe, but it has a much cooler sort of story that plays out.
Is Lorax the first one for kids? I mean, because the book, you know, I actually have never seen the movie. I'm thinking of the book here, but let's see what year Lorax.
Definitely for kids. Absolutely for kids.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I'm just trying. I mean, it has the same message, doesn't it? 1971 for the Lorax. So that would pretty much the OG of trying to get that message to kids.
Yeah, but the teacher wasn't rolling out the whole AV cart to read the Lorax.
They'd read the book though, wouldn't they? When I worked in
but
education, we would read the Lorax to the visiting kids.
we're talking apples and oranges here, though.
Yeah,
because when that AV card came out and the lights turned off, it was like you could do anything you wanted at that point.
Good point. Okay, but yeah, there's one. Beach Boys had "Don't Go Near the Water" on the Surf's Up album, which is the thing I love about Surf's Up is it has their best and worst music all on the same album. So.
There was another one, I guess, going through public school that was heavy on the environmentalism. And I tried looking up the movie that it was based on. I can't find it. But Silent Spring was huge. I remember that was like required reading for a number of classes. And there was a movie about a class action lawsuit that cites Silent Spring a few times. And I think John Travolta plays the lawyer in this movie. But anyways, that was just another, and that it's the boring version of all of this. They don't have any cool anthropomorphic characters that battle huge like demonic bulldozers or anything.
Yeah, Silent Spring might be an important book, but it is a pretty boring book.
Right. Well, and the movie that was based on, it's just that the lawyer, I think, cites a lot of the research that went into Silent Spring, but it's a movie that takes place inside of a courtroom, and they're talking about, birds dying because of some weird fractional buildup of DEET in the environment. So, I mean, as action-packed as you can imagine that movie becoming.
I'm still looking for your movie just out of curiosity. Well, The Simpsons featured a copy of Silent Spring as one of the items burning on the Fox News Yule log a few years ago. Of course, has anyone watched an episode of The Simpsons in the past 15 years?
I do every once in a while, but it always feels like I regret it. The name of the movie is A Civil Action, 1999.
Okay, I would have seen that. That's just Matt goes to see new releases on the weekends time period. So I'm pretty sure I saw that.
This was another AV cart thing in high school, I believe.
Yeah, it sounded awfully familiar. It sounded familiar.
John Travolta, no homework. I'll get behind it. I think I'm paid attention to half of it.
Yeah, they showed us Glory. I guess you got that. I think
William H. Macy too. I mean, come on. Oh, James Gandolfini. Now I want to rewatch this movie.
Yeah, who directed that?
Steven Zalian. I don't know who that is.
I want to say
Schindler's List. So I guess he's done some other things.
We didn't direct that.
Screenplay. He did the screenplay, but he also wrote Civil Action and directed it.
Okay, I just want to see what else he directed because I feel like that's
John Travolta, Robert Duvall, James Gandolfini, William H. Macy, and produced by Robert Redford.
Yep.
Music
Okay.
by Danny Elfman, Touchstone. So hey, we came full circle all the way back to Disney.
He made Searching for Bobby Fischer. Okay, that's at least I would have seen his name before somewhere. So yeah, otherwise he was mostly a writer. It seems. Like Schindler's List.
I wonder too, since I definitely saw this movie in Florida, and this was produced and distributed by Buena Vista Pictures. It probably was just within the radius of Disney that gets tax write-offs by distributing quote educational content to local students or something.
Mononoke?
No, I'm talking about Civil Action movie.
Okay, that's one of his. Okay, yeah. I just was wondering if you're asking about the release from Mononoke, where I definitely could have seen it at about 3 movie theaters in Atlanta when it was released. It showed about 3 instead of like 30, so I guess that's worth noting.
I could imagine that the typical I love anime because I've seen Dragon Ball Z or whatever, going to see Mononoke might not come out with all of their expectations met. Although again, I've got no idea why people like that kind of anime.
And if you were watching, this is a little bit before Dragon Ball Z actually became like mainstream, but people were watching it. I had friends that had dubbed video tapes, and the dubbings were terrible. So yeah, even if you watch this dub, you would have watched this in the movie theater in America dubbed, most likely.
I can't remember if it was you that I was talking to. I was talking to somebody recently, and they pointed out that Dragon Ball Z was not really a kids show, but because of when America sort of adopted it and started airing it and doing dubs, that whoever did that was just like, oh, it's a cartoon. Of course it's for kids. And then once they get into the
kind of
later
is for
seasons,
kids. No, it was kind of for kids. The Dragon Ball with no Z, definitely for kids. Even in Japan, no one would dispute that.
well, there's a non-Z Dragon Ball. See, I'm just showing how ignorant I am of all this.
Yeah, Goku's a boy. He's got a monkey tail. He runs around with a pig boy. And one of the worst dubs I've ever heard, because that's maybe the one where I decide I can't watch dubbed kids, because Goku sounds like a Japanese boy in Dragon Ball, and then he talks like this, and then Bulma is supposed to be like this hot girl, right? And she sounds, like a normal hot girl in the Japanese dub, and she sounds like a middle-aged woman in the English dub. So I was like, I don't like that, but and yeah, of course, Dragon Ball's a manga. I mean, almost everything we've been talking about, except for Mononoke, it was a manga first. Everything's a manga, and then they make the anime later. Like, it's hard to think of an anime that started as an anime, actually, except for maybe something Ghibli.
I wonder if Ninja Scroll started as a manga.
I'm pretty sure it did. I'll double check that, but let me put it this way: I would be surprised if it didn't.
So
maybe
in that case, Mononoke stands alone in a way.
Ghibli. I mean, there are a few Ghiblis based on things too, of course, but they're a little they don't necessarily make a manga first. Ninja Scroll. Film takes place plot. Sorry, I am really curious if this is based on the works of novelist Futaro Yamada and Western spy fiction. Well, actually, it looks like this one might have gone straight to movie. They used some, based it on some stuff. But yeah, it wasn't a manga first. So okay, Ninja Scroll was not a manga first. So,
but it was released through Manga Entertainment,
because they were probably taking mangas and making
right.
And then there was also, we recently did Perfect Blue, and that was, what are those OVAs? Which it was going to be OVA, which is just like kind of cheap animations made for direct-to-video, which I was like, oh, I guess they don't make those anymore. And I was walking through a store like 3 days ago, and I stumbled directly into the OVA section, so it still exists. I guess from the American perspective, there are no video stores. We still have a couple hanging in Japan. A couple that won't let go of the fight.
It's interesting. There is a manga called the Yagyu Ninja Scrolls, who features Jubei, who's the main character, but they were created after the movie came out. So even though it's based on the original novels where the movie was also based on, it seems like it was kind of based on the movie, based on the original writings.
Went the other way, yeah. No, I'm sure there is a Mononoke manga now, post movie, but
it actually cites the time period for Ninja Scroll, 1642, very specific, because there was a rebellion by the Hori clan against I'm not even gonna try and pronounce all these words, but yeah, there was a big rebellion, 1642.
Oh, here's what Nausicaa. Miyazaki did the manga and then he did the movie. That's kind of interesting. Yeah, he did the manga first and then made the movie. I didn't even know he made manga. Okay, well now I do. A busy man. A busy man you would not want to work with, I guess. You should know
sounds like Walt Disney.
Exactly. Miyazaki is such a perfectionist that he will yell at people. So, which it sounds like Disney didn't yell at people much. He'd be more like, oh yeah, this looks really good. Of course you're going to change that. Like this one.
No, you're 100% right, because I got to work with some of the older folk that actually worked, when Disney was poking around in the studios and stuff. And some of the versions of the stories that I heard, it was almost like he would play this dynamic of the disappointed father, but you knew that if you got that from him, then it wasn't just a suggestion that, you might lose your job or you get demoted or, something bad would happen that would be unfavorable to you if you didn't heed this warning. And I think I've told this before, but this was the one that always stood out the most, was that he would get mad if he saw you doodling when you were supposed to be working on, because they were always over budget and over timeline and everything, so why would you be doing anything other than working on this movie? But also he would go through all the animators' desks and look through their desks after everyone had gone home, and if you didn't have doodles in your desk, then he would get upset, because it was like, oh, you don't take animation seriously because you're not thinking of it all the time. Because if you were thinking of it all the time, you'd have all sorts of unrelated non-Disney doodles going on. And if you don't have that, then you're just probably not at the same level we expect. So it inadvertently turned into this thing where everybody had this extra job before they go home. They would also have to draw doodles just because they knew there was a chance that Disney would look for the doodles and then basically, you know, like verbally lash them in public the next time that it came up. So I don't know. That was just interesting because that's not necessarily the way that you would act around like a altruistic sort of leader. Like this was very much run out of fear in some ways.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking of the Japanese workplace where it's just the time you put in. Like, you know, in America, if I get things done real quick, wow, he's real efficient. That's great. Time to spare. No, not in Japan. It's 9 to 5 or more if you're waiting for the boss to leave, which I don't have to do, by the way, but many Japanese do. But yeah, you have to look busy the whole time. Like, my friend Luke, who I like podcast with, he when he first came to Japan, he was working at like a hostel or something because he'd just gotten here, and it was like a 3-hour gig, right, cleaning the rooms. And it only took him an hour to do it. And they're like, what about the other 2 hours? You know, you have 2 more hours to clean, but it did in 1, you know? So he just worked it out where he, you know, clean a little bit of room, play on his DS for 20 minutes, you know, but that's like what you're supposed to do. I don't like that. I want to do something quickly and then like firmly commit my mind to something else. So that's something I definitely do not like about the Japanese workplace. Fortunately, the school I worked at yesterday had 3 people there. So, you know, you don't have to try too hard to look busy. That's why I don't like going to the main schools because there's, you know, it's crawling with people and it's hard to look busy when you have nothing to do.
And this is why AI is going to destroy us all at some point.
Oh God, yeah, that's going to be terrible in Japan. No, they have AI for like a few like city offices now. Like it will save our workers like 6 minutes a day. It's like, who cares? Also, they need that time to look busy.
Well, I guess this is the perfect time for them to start working on the sequel, which I guess they're going to call it Princess Mononoke Ki.
Yes, there we go. Mononoke Ki. You can really mangle that if you want. I guess we'll wind this one down for the day, unless you got something else you want to spit into the black
I'll just go right into what I'm plugging, which is the Never a Straight Answer comic book. You can go to nasacomic.com, and I'm happy to announce, as of us recording this right now, end of July, but I ran it on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and both of those platforms, it's hit 100% funding. So it's definitely coming. And I think I'm just waiting to see how many of the custom embroidered patches and the custom holofoil covers that I'm going to end up ordering for all this. But if you're listening to this and it's already out, then great news for you. You don't have to wait. You can go directly to nasacomic.com or paranoidamerican.com and get yourself a copy of this 40-page comic about Stanley Kubrick directing the moon landings. Took about 5 years to fully write and edit and produce and do all the things. So it's been a long time coming, and I really do think that it is the definitive Stanley Kubrick moon conspiracy comic book. I know how many qualifiers that just included, but it is the definitive one. If you like Stanley Kubrick and or moon landing conspiracies, there's really nothing better that you can find that's going to beat nasacomic.com.
All right, you use a bigger term. You'd say printed media, pop culture. Try one of those maybe. Don't keep in the comic book sphere. I wonder if anyone has done that. I would not be surprised to hear that's funny.
You note that though, because there is, when it comes to book reviews in particular, the page count actually has this magical, abstract, but very real boundary that I believe once you cross 48 pages, then a printed publication goes from being a periodical / magazine format to being a book. And there's book reviewers out there that if it's like, 47 pages, you know, like that's so below me. We don't address those things. But then you add one extra page and they're like, oh, wow, this is a well-produced book. Congratulations.
Splash page. Just one splash page.
So I guess I didn't think completely ahead because he has 40 pages instead of 48 pages, which would put it to that next level. But I guess I'm leaving the option open out there to come back out with like a super deluxe version with like another 12 pages added. And then we're in business.
You had an 8-page short story where a little squirrel is observing all these events from the rafters. As for me, I guess I'll promote today my another podcast I do, Films and Filth, the Citizen Kane of podcasting, where we talk about where it's supposed to be really good movies, really bad movies. As I mentioned, I recently talked about Mononoke there as well, where it was number 75 on the list of good movies. So that's where it was. I think we do have some Ghibli that get a little higher, maybe. Or maybe not. Maybe we're finished Ghibli. I don't know. We also recently did... we'll be doing Spirited Away again for that one, like 2 years, I guess. But yeah, that's Films and Filth anyway. Now I'm thinking to myself, which is not good podcasting. So... humble brag, I'm going to walk outside and walk through these settings you just saw in Princess Mononoke.
Spread the word with propaganda packs, all for just $40 shipped at paranoidamerican.com.
Paranoid propaganda packs. We got facts on these sticker slaps. So grab yourself a stack and go attack with these paranoid propaganda packs.
These huge all-weather slaps will last in public for years to come. Remind citizens that birds are not real, self-immolation is an option, and might make you magnetic. Do your part and get a propaganda pack today from paranoidamerican.com.
Paranoid propaganda packs. We got facts on these sticker slaps. So grab yourself a stack and go attack with these paranoid propaganda packs.
What are you waiting for? Go to paranoidamerican.com right now and get a paranoid propaganda pack.
Ready for a cosmic conspiracy about Stanley Kubrick, moon landings, and the CIA? Go visit nasacomic.com.
nasacomic.com, CIA's biggest con. Stanley Kubrick put us on, that's why we're singing this song. I'm nasacomic.com, go visit nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Yeah, go visit nasacomic.com. Oh, nasacomic.com, CIA's biggest con. Stanley Kubrick put us on, that's why we're singing this song. I'm nasacomic.com, go visit nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Yeah, go visit nasacomic.com.
Never a Straight Answer is a 40-page comic about Stanley Kubrick directing the Apollo space missions.
Yeah, go visit nasacomic.com.
This is the perfect read for comic, Kubrick, or conspiracy fans of all ages. For more details, visit nasacomic.com.
And all American stickers, cryptids, cults, and killers. We got all your favorite conspiracies, all the land and more on our sticker sheets. Paranoid American stickers, they'll make you smile and snicker. False flags and secret societies, all of these and more on our sticker sheets.
Explore the unique with Paranoid American sticker sheets. Unearth tales of cryptids, cults, and mysteries through each sticker. These won't last long. Get yours now at paranoidamerican.com.
And all American stickers, cryptids, cults, and killers. We got all your favorite conspiracies, all of that and more on our sticker sheets. Paranoid American stickers, they'll make you smile and snicker. False flags and secret societies, All of these and more on our sticker sheets.
What the heck are you waiting for? Discover the extraordinary with Paranoid American sticker sheets. From cryptids in the night to cults out of sight, each sticker is a unique find. Get yours now at paranoidamerican.com.
Paranoid. Yo. I scribble my life away, driven to write the page. Will it enlighten your brain? Give you the flight, my plane, paper the highs ablaze. Somewhat of an amazing feel when it's real to real. You will engage it. Your favorite, of course, the Lord of an arrangement. I gave you the proper results to hit the pavement. If they get emotional, hey, maybe your language, a game, how they playing it well without Lakers. Evade them, whatever the cost, they are the shapeshift. Snakes get decapitated, met is the apex. Execution of flame you out, nuclear bomb distributed at war, rather gruesome for eyes to see. Max them out, then I light my trees. Blow it off in the face, you're despising me for what though? Calculated and rather cutthroat. Paranoid American must be all the blunt smoke for real. Lord, give me a day away, vacate. They wait around to hate whatever they say. Matters not in the least bit. We get heavy rotate when a beat hits, so thank us, you're welcome. Fuck the niggas for real, you're welcome. They ain't never had a deal, you're welcome. Man, they lacking appeal, you're welcome. Yet they doing it still, you're welcome.